GitHub Copilot can help you write code faster in many different programming languages. In this video, we'll be covering how to use Copilot with Python. We'll have a Python command line tool that we will be making some changes with Copilot to help make it a Python HTTP API. If you're new to Copilot or you don't have it installed yet, make sure to watch this video right here. The project that we're going to be working with is a command line tool summarization tool. And I'm going to show you how that works here in the terminal. You can see summarize, and then I'm going to pass a URL, and I'm going to hit return. And that is going to take a quick second there to summarize the text. I'm passing a Wikipedia page that describes Microsoft Azure. Now we're gonna get a lot of warnings here, and that's fine, that's expected, and it will take a second because loading this very big model on my machine will take quite a while of computing power. Now let's wait a second until that completes and see what the result is. Alright, so that summarization process completed, and you can see that at the bottom. It's Microsoft Azure. It's a cloud computing platform operated by Microsoft Perfect. So that is what the tool does. That's the functionality. And what we're going to be looking at today is try to convert this command line tool here defined on main. I'm going to close the terminal now. And what we're going to do is going to convert these to an HTTP API using Fast API and Ubiquorn, which are two tools that I'm going to use to actually run the API and make the HTTP framework bits for it. Now let's walk very quickly through some of the components here. We're going to have a few functions that we're going to be working with. This is extract from URL, so this accepts the URL as input, and then it sends the request and parses all of the paragraphs and tries to produce the text that gets returned at the very end. The process function will actually do the actual summarization process and will try to get all of the text captured from the URL and summarize it properly. And finally, we have the main, which will use the command line pieces to try to parse. We can even have the option of doing from a file and summarization from a file, which sounds correct. All right, so first thing that we want to do is we want to take a look at the requirements. What are the libraries that we're going to be working with? Transformers is fine and TensorFlow is fine as well, but Qlik is the command line tool framework. So because we're porting these over to an HTTP service, we're going to not need that anymore. And we're going to start adding a little bit of the things that we're going to be working with. We are going to actually use Fast API. Fast API has a good version here that I want to use, which is 0.78.0. I'm going to accept there the Copilot suggestion for that 0. And then I'm going to say Ubiquorn. And one thing that I want to do with Ubiquorn, actually, I'm going to do the standard. And I'm going to accept the standard one, and I'm not going to pin it for now. Pydantic is part of Fast API, so I'm not going to pin that version right this second. All right, so Fast API and Ubiquorn are two things that I want to use. Let's start porting over main.py with the help of Copilot to try to get these to stop being a command line tool and start looking more like an HTTP API. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove Qlik from the very top, and here at the bottom of these imports, we're going to start importing what we need for the API. So from Fast API, we're going to import not only Fast API, but we'll also do response. I think response is something that we want to use for some HTML things that we're going to respond for the root. And then from Pydantic, again, I didn't install that by default because it comes with API. And yes, in fact, we're going to use base model. I'm going to accept there the suggestion from Copilot. Next, what I'm going to be doing is create the application for Fast API, and this is exactly what I wanted on line number 7. I'm going to define what my application is going to be. And now what I need to do is create a definition of what my input is going to be. I'm going to be using JSON as the input for this HTTP API endpoint. So what I need to do is create a class that's going to inherit from base model. You can see here the Copilot is actually trying to guess that this is exactly what I want. And yes, in fact, yes, this is exactly what I want. It's going to be the summarize request. I actually want to accept text and string. So that looks great. So let's take a quick look at what does this mean. The text here is the key, that the value is going to be of a string value. So behind the scenes, Fast API is able to use these to validate the request is exactly what I need. So this looks very good so far. Next, I am going to scroll quickly here and remove all of the click options for the main. We are not going to yet do any app decorators yet. We're going to define a root for serving our application. So I'm going to say get, the slash means root. I don't want to call it read root, but I'm going to call it root. And that means the top level of our API. I don't want to do return that, but I want to return a response with some basic HTML here. I'm going to say h1 and yes. And you can see here as I'm typing, I'm kind of like guiding Copilot to give me more what I want to do and kind of like showing the path where I want to go so that the suggestions can be better from Copilot. So I'm going to accept that. And then the next thing that I want to do is change these main functions. I'm going to take these out of here and I'm going to leave the root at the very bottom. I'm going to paste the main over there. I'm going to rename this main. I'm going to rename it with the name of the endpoint that I want to do. So I'm going to say this is going to be summarize, and I'm going to make sure that that function name is not repeated. It isn't, so that's very good. You have to be careful renaming function names to avoid clashing. So I open up a new line, and yes, again, Copilot properly figure out that I want to expose these with a post HTTP, and that will allow me to do that. That's fine. Now I need to change the arguments, because remember, I created a class for accepting that request. And in this case, again, it figures out that I want to process in the request is going to come in, and it's going to be a summarized request. Now, the body of the function now is incorrect, and I need to make sure that I'm now using request over here to try to parse what I'm going to be working with. So if you remember what we were going to be using the key for summarize request, the class that we created before, the text is the actual key that we want. So we want to process the text from that. That text is going to be the URL that we're going to pass. So instead of returning as Copilot does here, we're going to say URL is going to be request that text. And that's fine. This is a bit of a misnomer, and we can actually fix that later, because it would be preferable to call it URL, but we're gonna leave it like that. Now, we're no longer going to be doing anything with a file, so I'm gonna remove that. That's fine. We're going to define that text is going to come from extract from URL. Remember, this is going to also retrieve the contents of that remote URL. And then instead of using click, which is the command line tool framework, what we're going to be doing is going to return some JSON for what we want to do. So return, we can actually even return the plain text. So it is something that we can definitely try to do that. So why not try to leave it simple and not return JSON for now. But one thing that I want to fix, and Copilot is going to help us try to make sure that we're doing this right. We're going to make sure that summarize request uses a URL as the key. So let's go all the way up to line 10. I'm going to change these to a URL. I'm going to save that. I'm going to scroll down back again. And now this is no longer text. This is going to be URL over here. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to make sure to look at all of the functions and make sure that the command line tool framework bits and pieces are no longer used. In this case, 38 and 39 will go away. So I'm going to install the new libraries and make sure that we have everything we need to run this HTTP API. So very quickly, everything is in order. Perfect. We were able to complete that. Next, we need to run this project now. In order to do that, we're going to use Ubicorn. Remember, we added that to requirements.txt. Ubicorn is a Python web server that is going to allow us to run this HTTP service, or HTTP API rather. So I'm going to clear these to clean this up, all of that output. So I'm going to change to summarize, and then that's where our main.py module is, and I'm going to run Ubicorn. I'm going to run this so that we can see this. I'm going to say host is going to be 0.0.0. That means that it's going to bind to any address, and that's fine. And our application is in the main module, and colon means that inside that main module, we're going to have our application defined as app, and we want to run this. I'm going to run this and see, hopefully it runs without a problem, or otherwise we'll need to make some fixes. So this is our summarization API. Remember, I have that sloppy HTML that we created, and the address is 0.0.0 port 8000 locally on my computer. One of the things that we have with FastAPI is that we have /docs, so let's see if that works. So perfect, you can see that we have this automatically generated documentation with FastAPI. So what we're gonna do is take a quick look at what we have. We have the post for summarize, and we're gonna expand that, and we have like several different options, the URL, string, that looks perfect. So let's go ahead and try it out. I'm gonna click this button here to try it out. And this is the request body, but like, of course we don't want string. This is just an example. We're gonna pass here the actual URL. That's the Microsoft Azure Wikipedia entry. That looks correct. I'm gonna click execute, and we'll see what is going on. All right, so unrecognized response type displaying content as text. That's fine. It did actually quite a very good job to try to do a little bit of summarization almost right away. So that's it. We were able to complete this porting over of this Python command line tool into this HTTP API with Copilot, and we were able to go pretty fast. If you found this video useful, make sure you like and subscribe. If you want to catch up on the rest of the Copilot series, make sure you watch these videos right here.